of the oldest pubs in Ossett. Why is a pub important? Because when it was built, the only thing safe to drink really was beer. Water wasn't safe to drink. Do you know what that means? Do you know what that means? That means you would have been drinking beer. Oh yes, every day! Watered down beer, so we don't have to be too worried. You like that idea, don't you? Right, because the fountain's 100 years away. The fountain hasn't arrived yet. This is 100 years before. And a man who was a carpenter built this pub, or a brew house, as it would have been called at the time. His name was John Harrop, and I don't know how old he was when he built this pub or brew house, but I can imagine that he would have built much of it himself with his own two hands. He would have done all the joinery, he would have made dovetail joints, he would have made it as beautiful as his hands could craft, because having made it, it would have been an advert for his skills to all the people here. And then he brewed his beer and he shared it out, obviously at a price, to all the people of Ossett. Because I think there's a common theme in a lot of the buildings and things that were built and placed here. It wasn't just about them and what they wanted. It was always about what the town needed. And onwards! You ready? Welcome to the end of Illingworth Street. So, we've talked a little bit about the importance of pubs and brew houses. They're making water safe to drink, as well as, I imagine, being quite fun places in their own right. And there's one of our oldest pubs in Ossett, just for you to see. And 100 years later, just down this street, was the start of the temperance movement in Ossett, which was all about not drinking the demon drink and having lovely coffees instead, because 100 years later water is safe to drink. There's a lovely fountain as well, and people are trying to stop people from becoming all drunk and that, and flailing about. Now, what I like to think happened is when they built it there, they were doing it quite knowingly, because one of the most popular pubs was just up here, and so they were trying to make a statement when they put the temperance hall there and the little coffee house and everything. And can you imagine the collisions between the people spilling out of the pub and the people in the temperance hall at the time saying, "You shouldn't be drinking," and the people in the pub saying, "Maybe you should be drinking," and so on and so forth. I'm sorry to say, or perhaps I'm happy to say, who knows, the temperance movement never quite took off in Ossett. And we won't go all the way down the road, but if we were, we'd be able to turn left and look down to where one of the old rag mills used to be. I don't know if you know this, but rag mills and the production of cloth was what Ossett was famous for. And rag mills is a way of kind of using the leftover bits of cloth. And there's a wonderful lady called Anne who shared with me her memories of having worked in the rag mill, also called a shoddy mill, that was just down that way. She said to me that what they used to do was get all the bits of raggy cloth on the conveyor belt, and they'd cut it up really small, and it would go through the conveyor belt and it would fall into a big square sack. Now, Anne was quite slight, and they'd turn the conveyor belt off, and then two fellas would call out, "Come on then, Anne," and she'd come over and they'd pick her up, one on each arm, into the sack, and she'd press down and tamp down all of the rags and the shoddy, and then they'd pull her back out again. They'd turn the conveyor belt back on, and off it would go. Fill the sack up again, turn off the conveyor belt, and here she'd come, and they'd pick her up, put her in again, and so on and so forth. And that was her working day. And she told me she quite enjoyed her job. And she didn't mind being picked up by a couple of burly fellas every day and popped in a sack and then back out again. And that is one of those little stories of working in a rag mill in Ossett. I hope you enjoyed it.